All right, let's talk about the Himalayas. This is a place where the line between hard science and, well, ancient myth gets incredibly blurry. It's a landscape that creates stories as massive and powerful as its own peaks.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? We're not talking about just any old mountain range. This is a world so huge, so remote, and so intense that it can hide secrets that feel, well, completely impossible. That's the big question, right? And that's exactly what we're going to dig into. We're going to explore some of the most unsettling, most fascinating mysteries of this incredible place, from bizarre discoveries to legends that just refuse to die.
So let's start with something genuinely haunting. High up in the Indian Himalayas, there's a remote frozen lake. But when it thaws, it reveals a pretty shocking secret. Hundreds and hundreds of human skeletons scattered all around its edges.
For years, nobody could figure this out. I mean, what happened here? Was it some ancient army that got lost? A group of pilgrims who met a terrible end? The theories were all over the place. But the truth? Well, the truth turned out to be way more complex and honestly, even more chilling.
This is where modern science just blew the whole case wide open. See, everyone thought it was one single tragic event. But genetic testing showed that these deaths happened in multiple, totally separate incidents, spread out over 1,000 years. And one of the leading theories? You're not going to believe this. Freak hailstorms. But we're not talking about normal hail. At that altitude, you can get hit with giant, baseball-sized chunks of ice that are absolutely lethal.
Okay, so we've looked at real physical remains. Now let's dive into mysteries that mess with your mind, where your own perception of reality starts to break down. In a place this extreme, you can't always trust your own eyes. And of course, you can't talk about Himalayan mysteries without talking about the big one, the Yeti, the abominable snowman. For generations, people have told stories about a huge ape-like creature roaming the high passes. And then in the 20th century, Western expeditions brought that legend to the rest of the world, especially with these really strange photos of giant footprints in the snow. But science has a pretty clever and, let's be honest, a much more likely explanation. Picture this. A Himalayan brown bear is walking through the snow. Its back paw lands just overlapping the print from its front paw. Then the sun comes out, melts the edges of that combined print, and what you're left with is the illusion of one single, enormous, and vaguely human-looking footprint.
So, footprints can fool you, sure. But what about places where the laws of physics themselves seem to just stop working? I'm talking about spots where you can put your car in neutral and it will look like it's rolling uphill, completely defying gravity.
It turns out these so-called mystery slopes are actually powerful optical illusions. They're called gravity hills. Basically, the way the surrounding hills and landscape are laid out, there's no true flat horizon to give you perspective, so your brain gets tricked. What looks like an uphill battle is really just a gentle downhill slope.
All right, but some of the biggest mysteries in the Himalayas aren't about what we can see or what we think we see. They're about what we are forbidden to even touch, places where human belief itself creates an invisible, impenetrable wall.
And the most famous example of this is Mount Kailash. It's not nearly the tallest mountain there, but it might just be the most sacred. For Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, it's considered so holy that trying to climb it would be a massive act of disrespect. This is a peak protected not by ice and wind, but by the sheer power of human faith.
And naturally, all kinds of stories swirl around these no-go zones. People report seeing strange lights, feeling that time itself speeds up or slows down, or that the mountain's shape is somehow unnaturally perfect. Now, there's no scientific proof for any of this, but the cultural power of these places is absolutely real. It shapes what people believe, what they say they see, and what they will protect at all costs.
So this brings us to the big idea. What if the skeletons, the mirages, the monsters, and even the sacredness of these peaks, what if it all comes from the same, single, incredible source? The greatest mystery isn't a story we tell about the mountains. It's what the mountains are actually doing every single moment of every day.
Because here's the most mind-blowing truth of all. The Himalayas aren't a static, finished thing. They are alive. They're actively, violently, being born right now as we speak.
So think about this. The Indian tectonic plate is grinding, smashing into the Eurasian plate, and that immense pressure is shoving the mountains higher every single year. All that stress has to go somewhere, and it's released as earthquakes, landslides, and massive avalanches. Those deep roaring sounds people hear aren't monsters. It's the sound of giant glaciers cracking apart. It's the mountain, breathing.
At the end of the day, the Himalayas don't need us to invent mysteries for them. The mountains are mysterious by their very design. In a place where a trail you walked yesterday can be gone today, where a lake can appear out of nowhere, how else are you supposed to make sense of it? Telling stories of magic and monsters isn't just about imagination, it's a way of surviving.
And that's really the thing to take away from all this. In the Himalayas, the geology is so epic, the reality is so dramatic, that even the hard scientific truth feels like a myth. It's a landscape that practically forces us to create stories, just to try and wrap our heads around its sheer power. And it reminds us that sometimes myth isn't the opposite of the truth. It's just our way of trying to understand